that hits pretty different. There's nothing quite like a flayed corpse to make me happy. Ooh, I'm excited for this one. So I'm gonna read it out of spite. Freaking good. Clearly I am a very mentally stable woman. Arcana messed up, unflinchingly brutal. Hi, I'm Sam. There's quite literally no one asking me to do this, but if I had to see my two crazy, awful, lopsided buns, then so do you. Hi. Today I want to tell you about my November TBR. October was not a great month for me. I was straight up not having a good time, so did not read as much in October as I was wanting to. So normal logic would say, Sam, if you were not able to complete every book on your TBR last month, shouldn't you this month maybe cut back a little bit? You would think that would make sense, but instead, I have chosen 24 books that I want to read in November. Clearly, I am a very mentally stable woman and someone you can trust. So I guess the reason I am being so ambitious with this TBR is because I am participating in the bloomin readathon put together by the YouTube channels Allison Pages and Kirsty. It's basically this like big ol' bingo card, and there's different spaces and each space is a different prompt. The idea is you can just pick some books to try and get a bingo, a single bingo, not a blackout, you crazy bitch. But I want a full blackout, so that's what we're doing. So I have chosen 24 books for all 24 prompts, and I'm going to tell you about them in this video. Strap in. All right, so the first space we have is the B space, which is supposed to be a buzzy book, a book that has received a lot of buzz. And for this, I have chosen My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. Usually people read this in the summer for like hot girl summer, okay? But I'm going to have sad girl autumn. Let's get the book in the frame, Sam. Okay. I actually don't really know what this is about, except that this main character is like super depressed, and I think she decides to like go to sleep for a year, just like sleep it off. But yeah, I've never read an Otessa Moshfegh book before, and I've heard that she's a pretty good writer, so looking forward to this one. Next is The Cloud Space. So this is a book that you think will make you emotional. So for this, I've actually chosen a poetry collection. Who is she? There is a poet who I've kind of been getting more into lately, which is probably one of the more pretentious things I've ever said in my life. But that is Wendy Cope. A lot of her poetry that I've seen has been like really simplistic, but like in a really profound way, if that makes sense. Ordered her book on interlibrary loan through the library, Serious Concerns, and I'm hoping that I can read that for the emotional space, for the cloud space. The next space is the sun space. So this is a book that you think is going to make you happy, a happy book. But I don't really read a lot of happy books. But what does make me happy is really dark, messed up shit. So, for this prompt, I have chosen the book Flayed Corpses and Other Stories because there's nothing quite like a flayed corpse to make me happy. Plus, look at him on the cover. He's smiling. He's got a big smile. So I think this is going to be very fitting for the sun space. So this is a collaboration between the artist and author Josh Simmons. So each story is pretty different in art style, but I think that what weaves them all together is that they're all kind of like messed up stories. So some pretty dark stuff. Not Your Mama's graphic novel. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one, and I hope that it makes me happy. Next is a book for the moon space, and the moon space is for a book that is published from an author from a different country than you live in. The idea being that no matter what country we're from, we're all under the same moon. So for this, I have chosen a recommendation that I actually got from the YouTube channel Lᵒᵛᵉᵧₒᵤ. Taiwanese horror is really underrated and like not talked about enough. I've played a couple Taiwanese horror video games, and that hits pretty different. I'm very eager to dip my toes more into Taiwanese horror literature. So the book I have chosen for this is Whisper by Chang. I'm not really sure exactly what this is about, except that it's a riff on a Taiwanese folk horror tale. People are mysteriously dying, and there's like reports of them like hearing this like whispering person in their head before they die. I think our main character is probably going to try and figure out the mystery of that and try and escape death. So I'm very, very excited, and I will let you know how it is. But either way, you should really check out Lᵒᵛᵉᵧ because they give a lot of really good recommendations in general. Next, we have the tree space, and for this you are supposed to read a nonfiction book. So for that I have chosen a memoir, and that is Comedy Sex God by Pete Holmes. Pete Holmes is a comedian that I think is really funny, and I've been following him for years. I was lucky enough to be able to see him live once before. I met him. I got a picture with him. Wow, flex. I think he's a really funny dude, and I hope that he's also a funny writer. Next is the daffodil space. So for this you are supposed to choose a story containing themes of non-romantic love. So for this I have chosen the book Model Home by Eric Puchner. The way it fits the prompt of non-romantic love is that it's about a family, and our dad is like, he really wants like the nuclear family, perfect family, everyone gets along, but I think he like squanders their money away, and then each family member kind of like goes on their own little journey of like messing up and just like the trials and tribulations of life. So I'm really interested in stories like that, so I am hoping I like it. Next is the cacti space. So the cacti space is supposed to be for a book that is short, and for that I have chosen a book that I just recently picked up, Only the Cat Knows by Ruyan Meng. This is about a man who works in China in the 1950s, and he's working in this like worker village, and he's basically just this like exploited factory worker, poor as heck and really scraping by, and he gets so desperate that he tries to rob his sister, but while he's doing that he's caught by his niece, and then it says that he performs the action that will seal his fate forever. So it kind of seems like it's implying like he maybe his niece. So that's pretty interesting to me, and this is definitely a setting that I don't really have a lot of experience with, so I am excited to read this. Ooh, I'm excited for this one. Okay, so this is one that I special ordered. For this space, it's the variegated space. I don't know if I'm saying that word right, and I don't care enough to look up the pronunciation, so we're saying it variegated. The variegated space is supposed to be a rare book. So for this, I just looked up on Goodreads on my want to read list and basically looked at which ones had the fewest ratings. So for that, I have chosen Egregore by Spencer Weidman. This is one that kind of just like popped up on my like suggested on Instagram, and I was like, damn, that cover is serving. I don't even know if I read the synopsis before I bought this. Okay, so basically our main character, Timothy, gets diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he says, you know what? I need to leave a legacy, so I want to build this like crazy ass house. His wife does not handle the news well. Her mental health starts to decline. As Tim's physical health declines and then his wife's mental health deteriorates, they drift further apart until one day the house is finished. The mansion of his design is an alluring Gothic monstrosity of tapered glass and dark stone that the wife is eager to call home. But shortly after moving in, Tim disappears, swallowed into the bowels of his creation. And now something is swelling in the places he once occupied. A hunger that haunts the darkness beyond locked doors. A malice that can smell Sandra's fear through the layers of opulent woodwork and wrought iron. Yeah, that sounds freaking good. Plus, this is like a small town, like Midwestern novelist. Yeah, it just says copyright Spencer Weidman, all rights reserved. So I think he just self-published this, so hell yeah, brother. Let's support a like super small author who writes spooky stuff that we love, you know? Okay, the next space is the propagation space. So for this, you're supposed to choose a book that is an adaptation or has like been adapted further than a book. So for this I've chosen The Devil All the Time because I know that this has been adapted into a movie that's on Netflix now. And I know I can get this on audiobook too. So this is another one I'm going to listen to on audiobook. Ooh, okay, so I guess I've never even read the synopsis for this. So this says that it follows disparate characters in post-World War II Southern Ohio and West Virginia, including a disturbed war veteran, a husband and wife who are serial killers. Oh my god, love that for them. And a false preacher. So that sounds like a pretty interesting group of characters that I'm excited to hear more about. Okay, the next space is the spider space. So for this, you are supposed to choose a dark book. And for this, I have chosen At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. Kind of like we're all equal in death, you know? At night all blood is black, doesn't matter where it comes from. And I like that. That's a really heavy metal way of saying that. So this is about a Senegalese man who fights in the French army in World War I, and he loses a dear friend in battle, and it kind of like drives him nuts. So he then proceeds to every night cross enemy lines, kill an enemy soldier, and then cut off their hand and bring it back to his camp as like a little trophy. And I think his fellow soldiers kind of start to get a little freaked out by him because they're worried he's like practicing black magic. So yeah, I'm really interested in this. It sounds like it's going to be really dark, so I'm hoping that is the case. Okay, the next space is the Lotus space, and for this you're supposed to choose a book that has disability representation, whether that be reading a book from an author who is a disabled person or reading a book that contains a character or characters who are disabled people. So for this I have chosen Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily R. Austin. So this is about Gilda, a 20-something lesbian who cannot stop ruminating about death. Desperate for relief from her panicky mind and alienated from her repressive family, she responds to a flyer for free therapy at a local Catholic church and finds herself being greeted by Father Jeff, who assumes she's there for a job interview. Too embarrassed to correct him, Gilda is abruptly hired to replace the recently deceased receptionist Grace. In between trying to memorize the lines to Catholic Mass, hiding the fact that she has a new girlfriend, and erecting a dirty dish tower in her crumbling apartment, Gilda strikes up an email correspondent with Grace's old friend. She can't bear to ignore the kindly old woman who has been trying to reach her friend through the church inbox, but she also can't bring herself to break the bad news. Desperate, she begins impersonating Grace via email. But when the police discover suspicious circumstances surrounding Grace's death, Gilda may have to finally reveal the truth of her mortifying existence. So this sounds like it's going to be pretty funny too, so I am excited. Okay, the next space is the succulent space. So for this, you are supposed to read a book that is hot, or that makes you hot. I think a lot of people are going the romance route with this, but that's really not my thing. So another way to interpret this prompt is that it's going to be something that makes you hot as in angry. So for this, I have chosen Paradais by Fernanda Melchor. And this follows two boys who I think, are kind of messed up. Yeah, two misfit teenagers sneak around and get drunk. Franco Andrade, lonely, overweight, and addicted to porn, fantasizes about seducing his neighbor, an attractive married woman and mother, while Polo dreams about quitting his grueling job as a gardener within the gated community and fleeing his overbearing mother. Each facing the impossibility of getting what he thinks he deserves, Franco and Polo hatch a mindless and macabre scheme. It's supposed to be really well written, but I think still really messed up, and I think that the boys are gonna piss me off. I'm gonna wanna... Next is the free space. Everyone gets it. Yay, we're all winners. Oh, okay, so the next space is the Lily space, and for this you're supposed to choose a book with death or grief themes, which are my thing. But for this I've actually chosen a short story by Gretchen Felker Martin, and that is No End Will Be Found. It's set during the Würzburg witch trials, which was one of the largest mass executions ever seen in Europe. It's a feminist horror story which is both humane and unflinchingly brutal. This book contains intense imagery and is intended for mature audiences. Heck yeah, sounds good to me. Next is the snail space. For this, you are supposed to choose a book that's more of a slow burn. And for that, I have chosen The Cormorants by Stephen Gregory. So you can see from the sticky tabs that I have already started reading this, but I got too caught up in thesis writing, so I was never able to finish it, and I've just been thinking about it ever since. I am really excited to get back into this because this was such a good folk horror, and I just got really sucked into all the imagery and the symbolism and stuff, so that's why I went crazy with all the sticky tabs. But anyway, this is about a young family who someone in the family dies, and he leaves the cabin to the family. You can have my house, but the only stipulation is that you also have to take care of my bird. But this bird is a cormorant, and he's just this awful, evil, disgusting bird who kind of just makes their life hell. So I am excited. Ooh, okay, next is the water space. You're supposed to read a book by an author that you're thirsty for more of. So for that, I have chosen It Chooses You by Miranda July. I love Miranda July. I read the first Bad Man by her this year. So far, it's one of the best things I've read all year. I love Miranda July's writing. She is a funny, funny lady. Probably one of the funniest writers I've ever read. But she also is a screenplay writer and a director. So in the summer of 2009, Miranda July was struggling to finish writing the screenplay for her much-anticipated second film. During her increasingly long lunch breaks, she began to obsessively read The Penny Saver, the iconic classifieds booklet that reached everywhere and seemed to come from nowhere. Who was the person selling the large leather jacket $10? It seemed important to find out. Or at least it was a great distraction from the screenplay. So I think what she did is she literally read this Penny Saver and went and found these people and interviewed them and then compiled it into a book. So it's kind of interview style, and then there's a bunch of pictures which were taken by Bridget Sire, glimpsing 13 surprisingly moving and profoundly specific realities along the way, shaping her film and herself in unexpected ways. So yes, I am very excited to get more into this because this is an author I am very thirsty for more of. Next is the fertilizer space. So for this, you're supposed to choose something that is going to be soul nourishing. So for that, I have chosen another graphic novel because I just think that there's something really cozy about graphic novels. So for that, I have chosen House by Josh Simmons. What intrigued me about this is that this is a graphic novel written completely without any dialogue. So it says, this is Josh Simmons' first original graphic novel, a hauntingly, entirely wordless story about a group of teenagers who discover a mysterious abandoned mansion in the forest. Their curiosity draws them inside, where both adventure and unexpected tragedy awaits. Yup, that sounds pretty cool. So yeah, we shall see. Next is the green carnation space. So for this, you're supposed to choose a book that has LGBTQIA plus representation. So for that, I have chosen We Can Never Leave This Place by Eric Laraca, who is an LGBTQ author. So he writes really weird stories, and even if they're not like all 5-star bangers for me, I still think that his writing is very valuable and just so entertaining to read. So what is this about? A precocious young girl with an unusual imagination is sent on an odyssey into the depths of depravity. After her father dies violently, young Mara is surprised to find her mother welcoming a new guest into their home, claiming that he will protect them from the world of devastation and destruction outside their door. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So this is another shorty. So I've been pretty strategic about the books that I've chosen for this. I'm tried to choose books so that I could realistically read all 24 this month, but we shall see. Next is the tulip space. So for this, you are supposed to read a book containing themes of romantic love. So for that, I have chosen Moshfegh by Melissa Broder. So I've never read any Melissa Broder, but I think she's supposed to be kind of like a Miranda July-esque funny writer. So this is about a girl who has an eating disorder and kind of a problematic relationship with her mom, and she meets another woman at a frozen yogurt shop, and she is just really drawn to this woman, and then I think that they develop a romantic relationship that also helps her heal her relationship with food. Okay, that's my romantic love one. Okay, next is the ladybug space. So for this, you're supposed to choose a book with a simple cover but a deeper inside. So for this, I have chosen Our Wives Under the Sea. The cover on Libby looked really simple, but when I was looking up other covers, I was like, that cover actually doesn't look simple. It looks really cool. But anyway, I had already chosen it, so we're moving forward. So this is one that I'm going to be listening to on audiobook, but this is about a pair of wives who, one of them did some sort of work under the sea for many months, and then when she comes back, she doesn't seem the same. Maybe sci-fi a little bit, sci-fi horror, but I actually really don't know. I think it has a deeper inside than this boring looking cover that Libby has. So that's why I chose it. The next space is the root space. So for this, you're supposed to choose a reread, but I have so many new books that I really want to read. So I kind of cheated with this one a little bit in that I chose a graphic novel adaptation of a book I've already read, but we're counting it. So I'm going to read The Good Earth. So The Good Earth is my favorite classic, but this is a graphic novel adaptation by Nick Bertozzi, which I've never read. And my sister actually just gifted this to me. So I'm counting this as a reread because I already know the story and how it ends. The color scheme of this is just really gorge, so I'm very excited to get into this. Next is the Earth space. So for this, you're supposed to choose a book that was either published or is set before the year 1990. So for that, I've chosen the short story The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. This is a short story I've been wanting to read for years and years, and I just have been putting it off and just never getting around to it, so that's why I really wanted to prioritize this. What I know about this is that a man wakes up as a bug, like a cockroach, I think, a giant cockroach. But then I think it's supposed to be kind of funny too. He's worried that he's not gonna be able to go to work. Yeah, so that's what I want to read for the Earth space. Next is the Ivy space. So for this, you're supposed to choose something that's highly rated. So again, I went to Goodreads, looked at my want to read list, and just sorted by average rating. And I think the highest rated on my want to read list is the poetry collection by Alok Vaid-Menon, and that is Your Wound, My Garden. I think that they wrote this during COVID lockdown. I'm kind of worried I'm not gonna be able to get my hands on a copy of this, but I ordered it on interlibrary loan through my library, so I'm really hoping that they come through for me because this is my most highly rated one on my want to read list. So it fits the prompt perfectly. Next is the Dandelion space. So for this, you're supposed to choose a book that has been a weed on your TBR. One that you have contemplated unhauling, but then you're no, it's been on my TBR for too long. I can't just give up on it. So for me, that book is Free Will by Sam Harris. I have had this book for probably a decade. I stole it from my sister and I never gave it back. Sorry, Breenie. Now it's every time I look at it, I get kind of mad because I'm how are you still here? But also I don't want to read you. Like, I don't know. It's just we have a very complicated relationship, and I'm sure it's a great book. So I'm going to read it out of spite. But yeah, this is a nonfiction. Sam Harris is like a philosopher and I think neuroscientist. This whole book, he's arguing that humans don't actually have free will. He believes that every action and choice we make in life is dictated by environmental factors and basically like biochemical reactions that are happening in your brain. So pretty hot take. I think it'll be interesting either way, but I'm just most happy to be getting this off of my freaking TBR cart. And then the last prompt is mole. So for this, you're supposed to choose a book with a strong antagonist. You might be thinking, Sam, if you haven't read the book yet, how do you know if the antagonist is strong? And that is a very good question. But I kind of just wanted to force this one onto the list because it's one I've really been wanting to read. And I think that the antagonist could be really interesting. So for that, I've chosen Pew by Catherine Lacey. This is about, in a small unnamed town in the American South, a church congregation arrives for a service and finds a figure asleep on a pew. The person is genderless and racially ambiguous and refuses to speak. One family takes in the strange visitor and nicknames them Pew. As the town spends the week preparing for a mysterious forgiveness festival, Pew is shuttled from one household to the next. The earnest and seemingly well-meaning townspeople see conflicting identities in Pew, and many confess their fears and secrets to them in one-sided conversations. Pew listens and observes while experiencing brief flashes of past lives, or clues about their origin. As days pass, the void around Pew's presence begins to unnerve the community, whose generosity erodes into menace and suspicion. Yet, by the time Pew's story reaches a shattering and unsettling climax at the Forgiveness Festival, the secret of who they really are, a devil or an angel, or something else entirely, is dwarfed by even larger truths. So yeah, I think that the sort of like mob mentality turning against this person who they like can't put their finger on, who doesn't like conform to their traditional, probably Christian, white identity, I think that's going to be really interesting to read about. So I think that could be a really interesting and strong antagonist, if you ask me. So I think it fits pretty well. So yeah, these are just some of the books that I want to read for Bloomin' Readathon. Yay. So will I read all 24? Who freaking knows? But we shall see. I'm going to try my best. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know what you are reading in November. Watch my other videos if you want. Subscribe if you want. Would love to hang with you. Do you want to hang with me? Is that too much? Would love to have ya. I will hopefully be coming out with my September/October wrap-up soon. Coming soon to a YouTube near you. Love you guys. Okay, bye.